Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Forza Horizon 3 with the latest patch on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti for FPS monitoring. This time I won't be using cam, since it's currently not working on Universal Windows applications, so I'll be using MSI Afterburner instead. And if you enjoy the content, consider supporting the channel directly on Patreon, link down in the description. So Forza Horizon 3, I'll be doing 1080p, 900p and 720p. To skip to any of those sections of the video, check the description below. So first I'll show you those three resolutions using the G4560, showing you both 60 frames per second ish configuration, and then I just crank up the game to the highest setting. And at the end of the video I'll show you the same three resolutions by using the Ryzen 5 1400, since a lot of you requested me to test it with that CPU. And with this new patch the game is running much better than before. I noticed less stutters, and it allowed the game to use more of the available CPU cores, so the game is not maxing out only one core at 100%. So that's good news. But you'll see with the G4560 on 1080p, 900p and 720p that it just limits the GPU. You'll see on 1080p that I'll get 60 frames per second with some drops as low as 52 frames in some occasions. Then on 900p and 720p I use the same settings and I get pretty much the same frame rate. I get 50 to 60 frames per second. And on 900p and 720p you notice that the GPU usage drops a lot, especially on 720p. That's because the CPU is limiting the GPU. So the CPU isn't allowing us to get a higher frame rate. That changes, especially on 720p when I show the Ryzen 5 1400. You'll see on 720p that I managed to be like 60 to 70 frames per second. Then when I crank up the resolution to 900p or 1080p, you'll notice that the performance is very similar to the Pentium. That's because the GPU is the limiting factor in that case, since you'll see that the GPU usage will be at 99%, and that doesn't allow us to hit 60 frames per second all the time on 1080p, for example. But on 900p and 1080p I noticed some extra spikes on the frame time using the Ryzen 5 1400. I'm not sure why that happened, since on 720p we're getting higher frame rates and the spikes weren't as intensive. Maybe restarting the game after changing the resolution would have been a good idea, but I didn't think about that when I was recording, so I'm sorry guys. When I changed settings on the G4560 I needed to restart the game, since in order to change some settings in the options menu like textures or the dynamic geometry, you have to restart the game in order for the changes to take effect. But keep this in mind, environment texture quality, you need to use it on high, don't use ultra. I tried it on ultra and the game ran terrible. It seems to use too much VRAM on the ultra environment texture quality. With that option on ultra I wasn't able to get 60 frames per second consistently, even at the lowest setting. So just keep it on high. Maybe if you want ultra you need a graphics card with 6 GB of VRAM or more, since this game seems to use a lot of it. So that's my first recommendation, just avoid environment texture quality on ultra. And one of the things that the patch added into the game was some extra options like the threaded optimization, which is the fix about the CPU that I talked to you about some minutes ago. And they also added some options on very low. So those options went from low to ultra, now go from very low to ultra, some options. So the system requirements are lower than before. And now in the description next to the option that you selected tells you what part of your PC this option affects. So it says it affects the CPU and GPU performance, it affects the VRAM usage. That's very useful, so I suggest you check it out if you want to tweak the game yourself. But I think that the settings that I chose were good enough to have good quality and performance, especially on 1080p. I recommend if you have a G4560 just stick to 1080p with the settings I chose. It's 50 to 65 frames per second pretty much. The game is responsive and the frame times are not that bad. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.